welcome to The Acorn, the podcast that drops a little bit of psychoeducation so you can gain a better understanding of the therapy world and yourself. So without further ado, let's jump into our episode. Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of The Acorn. Today we're going to be talking about what is intergenerational trauma. Well, intergenerational trauma is when traumatic experiences happens to an individual, family, group, community, ethnicity, or country, and it affects the next generation. For example, big T and little t traumas that happen within a family system can then be transmitted from great-grandparents to their kids onto their grandchildren through things like epigenetics. That trauma could also be passed down through subsequent generations via things like parenting styles, systemic oppression, and also things like limiting coping strategies. Marissa Nathan Gerson said, "We inherit pain. When it's not coped with, it gets passed again." In essence, that is what intergenerational trauma does. Pain happens within a family system or a group, and it's then passed on if it's not coped with and healed. So, having a better understanding of your story is key when seeking healing for this kind of trauma. Looking at systemic traumatic aggressions and microaggressions and its impact on generations of your family and cultural group is super important. Also, exploring family patterns of overt and covert wounding and the negative messages that were internalized, that's also key. So we can explore whether we're currently carrying the burden of trauma that our ancestors experienced years ago. In recent years, some people have begun referring to themselves as cycle breakers, and I'm one of those people too. Meaning that they're choosing to break the intergenerational cycles of trauma within their families. These people do the reflective work to understand their story. They notice the harmful traits within the family, and they decide to shift those negative traits for behaviors that are healthier and more appropriate for themselves and subsequent generations. Now, this is not easy. Cycle breaking is hard work. However, it allows you to leave a better legacy for your family coming after you. One important thing to be aware of is this process may not, and most likely will not, be smooth. There will be a regression to the traits that you grew up with, and that is natural. So, if you choose to embark on this process, please do so with tons of self-compassion and grace. Okay. So that was a lot on intergenerational trauma. And now, as we close out this episode, please remember to take a moment in your day to remind yourself to pause, breathe, hope, and heal. Take care. Well, this has been another episode of The Acorn. Remember, the content in these podcast episodes are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Disclaimer: anything said in this podcast should not be considered as treatment, professional consultation, advice, clinical instruction or assessment, or any other mental health replacement. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapist-client relationship between you and the podcast host. Always seek the advice of your own mental health provider regarding any questions or concerns you may have about your mental health needs. Also, if you need immediate help, contact your mental health provider or call 911. Take care.